Every family has a choice, follow the herd or carve their own path. This is the Lone Wolfe Podcast. Are you ready to stray from the pack?
Welcome to the Lone Wolfe Podcast. Hello!
Well, welcome back to Lone Wolfe Podcast. It's been a minute since I've been on here, and I have got a special guest today.
Yep.
My special boy.
It's me.
It's my brother. His name is Clayton, and we are here at his house in Jacksonville, Florida, podcasting out of our tent. So welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. So we are going to be in Jacksonville for about a month. We're staying at his house. We basically just moved all our shit in. And, a month, maybe two.
That's loose.
Maybe we never leave.
Month is loose.
It's loose.
This is not the first time you've done this. First time with your whole family. But
Yeah. Well, you love it.
I do. I do.
No, we're having a good time.
Yeah.
We're getting into all kinds of shit and, trying to stay busy and avoid taking care of children. Kidding. We love our children, and that's what this is about, actually. This episode, we're going to kind of talk about, the role of a father and what it means to be a strong leader for your family, especially in times where, there's a lot of weak men and a lot of bullshit, and they're trying to kill masculinity in the modern world. So that's kind of what we're getting into now.
Just to be clear, we're not experts.
Literally none of this is expert material. So if you're taking this as the Bible, I don't recommend it. But you might get something out of it, hopefully. So, I mean, as somebody in your position where you have teenage kids, you've got a brand new baby, you've done a lot of stuff in the 38 years, 39 years that you've been alive. You're coming up on 20 years in the military. You're about to retire and start a new career, and you're basically starting all over as a father as well.
Yep.
I feel like you can speak to a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, like being a strong role model in your family. I think, you're somebody that I look up to as a father and a leader of the family, and a man of faith. So I think that, we can you're a good person to talk to on how you've navigated that. You had kids really young initially.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot that people could get out of your perspective on how to go about doing that.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, running it back at 38, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
My wife and I had a baby boy. He's almost 11 weeks. Actually, he's 11 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, he's 11 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son. And, been in the military for 20 years. So we've moved all over the country. There's been periods when I was gone, that they were, without me in the house. And, now got remarried, had another kid. And it definitely looks different at 38 versus 22 when Ava, my daughter, was born. I mean, you're still learning about yourself, trying to figure out, what it means to be a man, what it means to be in the military, what it means to not just lead, but also follow. And so I have a lot more perspective now. Also financially, we're in a different spot than when I was
way different.
22.
Yeah, you didn't have anything before.
We were on WIC. We were
poor.
on WIC,
right?
And we qualified for it in the military. So
and
now financially we're in a way better spot. So
right.
It's going to be different. Ava and Eli might think it's unfair because,
right.
but they never knew that we didn't have any money.
Well, no, you guys, and that's. I think it's a good trait of a parent, like to show how good of a parent you are. If you were poor when your kids were young, and your kids didn't know it,
you're doing it right.
You figured it out and you made it work. And I think that's a huge success, because a lot of parents start out that way. They don't have anything, or they weren't planning to be parents in the first place, and they figured it out, and they figured out a way to elevate themselves and their family at the same time.
And I think it's good, honestly, to kind of to go through that. Obviously you want to be somewhat financially stable when you have a kid, but I also think that, learning how to do things on your own, getting out of the house, not relying on your parents or, or your friends, and seeing what it means to provide.
Yeah.
And that will be a quick way to force you to do those things. When you're single and you're going through life and you're broke, it's like, it sucks, but you're like, okay, I mean, it's just me.
You're forced to figure it out.
Right.
You're tossed. It's kind of like, trial by fire.
Which I think now it's like this weird thing in society where it's almost like, don't have kids, only rely on yourself.
Right.
And you only have to take care of yourself. And, they what do they call it when you got a husband and a wife that don't have kids, but they both work?
Oh,
yeah. Dink. Yeah.
Dink.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a dink, dual income, no kids, you're a fucking dumbass. Is what you are.
Fucking dink.
No, honestly, it's probably like very low stress.
It is probably kind of fun,
low maintenance, but
yeah.
But there's no fulfillment. There's no,
for sure.
I mean, there's a lot of struggle that comes with having children and providing for.
It's all struggle.
It's all struggle,
Yeah.
but there's nothing more rewarding.
Right. And struggle is good.
Struggle is good. And when if there is no struggle and there's this convenience and comfort and you're only going with what's easiest, you're not really living. It's not a life of fulfillment or joy or purpose. And I think that those are all things that we need as humans, especially as men, to feel fulfilled and feel like get that joy of life.
Well, the most natural thing in the world for a male is to continue your lineage,
100%,
right? Like
to have somebody carry on your name.
Yeah, I mean, or have children. Like,
right.
That's the whole point.
Yeah,
is to have kids.
Like, could you imagine getting older and being in a position where, you're in like your senior part of your life and you're retiring and you're looking for things and that you don't have any kids to call, or you don't have any, potential grandchildren, and there's no, like, what the fuck do you do with your time?
Yeah. I mean, well, I know what you do, because our dad, one of his really good friends, he doesn't have any kids, and he made fun of dad for having kids and
right. And starting a family.
Right.
And,
and now all he does is call dad and try to harass him about politics.
Yeah, that's so true. And it is funny because on paper you would look at him and be like, oh, he's a very successful guy. He owns a law firm, and, he retired, and he's got this
sweet boat.
He's had some badass boats and cool cars, and he would always show up. It's funny because he had all that shit, but it was like the pride that he had to like come see us. It was like he had to come show us,
right,
for us to get excited. We
right.
were kids, and we were like, oh yeah, this is a cool Porsche,
right.
And he'd take us for a ride, and it was fun. But at the end of the day, we didn't give a shit. We didn't care about his stuff.
He still calls me.
Does he really?
Yeah, he called me a couple weeks ago.
The guy ain't calling me.
But it's it's because he doesn't have anybody to to show it off to.
For sure. Yeah, that's true.
And he's old, and
exactly. And so he's now relying on his friends' kids to kind of maintain some level of grounding and sense of like purpose.
Right.
And I'm sure you're not the only person of his like friend group that he reaches out to that's a younger generation, because it's like when you don't have your own family and your own immediate relatives to kind of help guide and like maybe mentor or just be there for them, there's definitely a longing for that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like I said, the Bible says, children are like arrows in a quiver. Essentially, you can't have enough, right? Like,
yeah.
And that it's really the whole point is to
be fruitful and multiply.
Right.
That's it. When you actually look at that, it makes a lot of sense, because you do, like, as you get older and you start to realize that, it's not all about me, and there's a selflessness to life that brings more joy. You start to gain more happiness from the people around you, for sure. So one other thing I wanted to talk about was just kind of like the different roles of fathers over history and different generations. And, obviously our dad is a little bit older. And, he instilled some great things in us, but I think that, the millennials, and this is kind of based off of some statistics that I think we've both seen recently, but millennials are now taking it up a little bit as far as being involved with their kids. And I think we can, like, you can see, like, my friends personally, and you and me, I think we're way more involved with the day-to-day tasks of taking care of children
For
and
sure.
being there, than the previous generation.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, our dad was 38 when I was born. And he's 13 years older than our mom.
Mhm. Which is kind of crazy because now you're 38 and you have a brand new baby.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see that,
I always kind of use that marker, like 38, dad was 38. I'm like, I could still have kids then.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and
Yeah,
he had kids until he was 40.
Yeah. Katie,
48.
we talked about this the other day. Katie was born, our sister was born 8 years after you, 6 years after me.
Oh yeah, 8. That's right.
And so he was 46 when he had Katie. And I know personally, I know some men that have kids that just had them in their 40s as well, and they're great dads and they're very involved, and they don't seem old. You know what I mean?
No, and I mean it's definitely like a trend now for people to be older having kids, for sure. I mean, versus
doing
our
it when you're
parents
really young.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
And there's something to be said about it. I think you're probably more patient. You're, you're financially should be in a better spot.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have more, like, hopefully you have more time and intention to put into raising your kids versus doing it at a young age. Not saying that you shouldn't have kids young. I think you should, but if that's where you find yourself, I mean, it's really, especially for a man, it's kind of not too late, really.
No, it's I mean, Robert De Niro would tell you it's never too late.
Yeah.
That dude just had another kid. He's like 90 years old.
Yeah.
That's probably too much.
That's probably too late.
That's too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I think that there's definitely more men now that are waiting because they want to be, like you said, they want to be financially ready for it, and they're planning or trying to plan more. And so it ends up happening later on in life. I don't necessarily, like you said, I don't necessarily think that you should do that. I think that there is a need for, people to have more children. And I think that fertility rates are down, and part of that could be, environmental issues and bullshit that we're eating, and, toxins that we're dealing with that weren't there previously. But also I think it's more or less just losing your sense of youth and
for sure
sacrificing.
Right.
Like it's a huge sacrifice to have a kid.
Yeah.
And to actually be present for the kid. Cause a lot of guys have kids at young and they're gone.
Right.
And they disappear. And I think that it's scary, one, to know that you are now responsible for somebody other than just yourself. And I know that was scary for me when I was younger, and having girlfriends, and, obviously there's scares, and you're nervous, and you're like, oh, I'm going to get her pregnant, whatever. And we've all been there.
Yeah.
But, looking back at it, it's the most, it almost feels like society tells you, like, that's the most terrifying thing that can happen to you.
Oh, for sure they do.
Like,
I mean, to be fair, it is terrifying.
It's terrifying for sure. Yeah, it is.
Like, they're not wrong.
I'm terrified now.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that you and I do a great job at being fathers and being present,
for
and
sure,
being leaders of our family. But it's still scary. So I get that, and I understand. But I kind of wish society pushed a little bit more in the opposite direction and said, hey, you know what? It is scary, but it's also fulfilling and rewarding, and it's going to turn you into a man. As long as you're capable and you have the right guidance.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to basically society being like, well, you deserve you time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like,
exactly.
You deserve to party and make dumb decisions and have fun and do all these things in your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe if you're ready in your 30s, you can have kids. And
right.
It's just like, that's the complete opposite of what it has always been.
Right.
Like, you were supposed to have kids as soon as you could. Right. Like, for survival purposes.
For sure. Yeah.
And, even up until, probably the 90s, people were like, "Oh yeah, you haven't had a kid yet. You're 26."
Yeah, like you're getting old. Like,
yeah,
you
like
gotta,
what are you waiting on?
what are you waiting for? Yeah, you're missing your window almost.
And now it's like, don't have a kid yet. You're only 26.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you're still just a kid yourself.
Right.
And it's funny how that's happened where, we have generations of, men and women that are now living with their parents for much longer. And it does seem like they're being babied a little bit, and they're being put in a position where, either their parents are still treating them like children, or they're electing to be treated like children because they don't want to take the responsibility of growing up. And, a lot of that it's different too, because, when our parents were kids, you could buy a house for 90 grand,
Yeah.
and now that house is worth $1.2 million, and they're just sitting on the equity, and they're like, why aren't you buying a house?
Dude,
And
we
it's
could
like,
do a whole podcast on boomers and real estate.
oh, that's a whole different thing.
Dude.
For sure. Yeah. Why aren't you buying a house? It's like, well, the house that you bought for 90 grand is now appraising for $900,000. And
You're not going to take a dime under 950.
yeah. Yeah. But the wages, the current living wage it hasn't really changed from the time in the 90s.
Right.
Like, so it's a completely different thing. So, there's, to go back on like the whole millennial thing, and, us being more involved with our children. I did come across a couple different statistics, and I'm sure people have seen this on social media and stuff now because it goes around. But it says that since 1980, around the time of 1980, 43% of fathers claimed they had never changed a diaper. 3%, dude. That's insane.
That's the OGs.
That's the OGs. Maybe we could take something from them. But today, that number is only 3%. So that's a huge shift.
Yeah.
For, fathers being part of the just being present with their kids and having a role in the day-to-day things, diapers, helping with naps, bath time, all that stuff. And I think that we're seeing a benefit to probably the kids to have that time with their dad. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that there's a benefit to fathers being more involved with those things?
Well, I think our dad would proudly count himself in that 40%.
Oh, yeah, he was 100%.
He still does. Like, I never changed a diaper.
Yeah, he was that guy. And he told our mom because he initially didn't really want to have kids.
No.
And because, I think he knew how much life that was gonna eat up.
Yeah.
And
he kind of set the expectations for mom and was like,
yes,
look, we'll have kids, but
they're
not doing shit.
They're your responsibility. Yeah, that was exactly, and I'm not shitting on my dad because he's
an amazing dad,
the best.
Yeah.
And, for what he came from, and, where we are now, and the things that he's done and sacrificed for us, we're forever in debt to him.
Yeah. And basically what he said was like, I'm not changing diapers. I'll do, I'll take the responsibility of disciplining and teaching and stuff like that. And it was just basically clearly defined roles.
Yes.
With parenting. It wasn't like he wasn't involved.
No, because he coached my football teams. He coached, he always signed us up for sports. He was always there for games. He didn't miss stuff. Like he had his roles that it didn't feel like he wasn't there for us.
Right.
So it was different for sure. And, maybe there is some level of like, I don't want to say benefit, but like maybe there is something to that than having those specific roles. I don't necessarily think that as a man, you shouldn't be helping out with the small things for the kids. I
think it's really just like is dependent on the couple. Like mom was fully supportive and comfortable with what dad was willing to do and not do.
Yeah, but
like but I do think that was a model for us on what it looked like to be a dad in as far as like the day-to-days of it.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like when I had kids and I'm changing diapers and I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it was foreign. It was like, okay,
right.
Well, my dad never did this.
But I'm also like much more involved in like just the day-to-day things that normally would probably be in previous generations more of a woman's type role.
Right, the wife's role.
But I think the benefits to that are, number one, your wife's not going to go insane, right?
100%.
Like,
And I think we should clarify our mom is 1 in a trillion.
Yes.
She is awesome. She doesn't complain about anything.
She's
She
always
loves
happy
to do stuff, and she lives to serve other people.
Yeah.
Especially her family. So I think that if you are that type of person, which,
It's probably not the case.
probably not the case, and that's not to shit on you as a person. I think that you're probably normal. I think my mom's nuts. So
No, she's a saint.
she's a saint.
Yeah.
And, and when I say nuts, she's nuts in a good way.
Yeah.
She's very selfless. But yeah, I think that, like you said, I think that helping and serving your wife, not only is it kind of, it's a biblical thing, and to be a man of the house and call yourself the head of your household and the head of your family, that itself comes with a title of a life of service.
I mean, it's there's a term, it's servant leadership, right?
Right.
Like that is a high, like, regarded type of leadership in any type of like workplace or the home,
Yeah.
where you're not just talking about it, you're being about it, right?
Mhm.
Like, you're getting your hands dirty, you're leading from the front.
For sure. And I don't know about you, but like and I'm sure you can too, but like I can tell when my wife is overwhelmed. And I
Oh,
can tell when
yeah,
she's
for
stressed
sure.
out, and I
Yeah.
can tell when she needs a hand, and and
You
it
know
ma-
why? Is because things are probably not going great for us either.
Right. Right.
Like, oh fuck, man.
Oh yeah, what the hell's wrong with it?
Yeah.
No, but it feels good, like, because we've poured so much into our relationships and our families. It feels good to make sure that nobody's getting the bad end of the stick, or they feel like they're being, neglected. And you want your loved ones, you want your wife to feel like you're there for them, and that you're the backbone, and you're the one that is going to prop them up when they need it the most.
Well, in with your kids, right? Like, if you're not doing those things, it can quickly turn into, oh, the only time dad's involved is when things are wrong.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
now there's a negative connotation around when dad's doing something, because he's never doing anything unless I'm in trouble or I'm getting punished.
Mhm.
Mom's lost control.
Right.
And now we got to call reinforcements in, and it's not
Right.
good.
Right. Well, then it sets a bad example, especially, I mean, and you have 2 sons now, and I have daughters, which this is still a good representation for son or daughter, but especially for like raising men.
Yeah.
In this current world that we're in, where, they're trying to emasculize us and make men a little bit more feminized. But to have your kids and your sons see the way that you help your wife, and the way that you treat your wife, and the way that you prop her up and make her feel special, and make sure that, things are being taken care of for her. It's just setting the example for them that's how you treat a woman.
Right. And it works the other way too. Like, you're setting an example for what your daughter should expect her husband,
100%.
future, boyfriends or whatever,
Mhm.
what that's going to look like as well. Because if all they see is a guy that's hardly around, or when he does show up, he's yelling at mom,
Right.
Well, now that's the new normal for them.
Right. And it's normal in that, like, it's normal for you to get to as a woman, to get to the point where you're so stressed out that you have to lash out in order to feel like you're heard.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
that is so unhealthy, but I think that it's really prevalent, especially nowadays. It's like young girls have to do something extremely dramatic in order to get the attention that they feel like they need, because they're dating men that weren't shown the right way to treat a woman.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot to that. And I think that it goes as part of the role of being the family leader and the man of the house. And like you said, it benefits both the sons and the daughters, because you're showing your son how to become a man and treat a woman and lead a family. And you're also showing your daughters how to pick a man that's going to be that person for them when they start to have kids, or they're looking to get married, or, find a partner.
But I do think, when you can find that right balance, it's everything's great, but I think it can go too far one way as well, to where now you're setting the wrong example for your kids as well.
Yeah.
Right. Like when now mom becomes the disciplinarian, dad's doing the chores. It's gone too far. The wife's nagging the husband.
Yes.
And the husband's just kind of like a beaten dog. Like,
right.
We've seen those relationships as well.
And those never work out.
And those do not work either.
No, and it's tricky because there's a balancing act. There's a balancing act on both sides.
It should be like 60-40.
Yeah. Well, and when you talk about like a relationship and how it should be equal and you should be treated like as equals, and that the term equals is kind of stupid because we're not equals in the relationship.
Right.
There's a man's role and there's a woman's role, and there's obviously things that can float between those two things, but there has to be some sort of established lines in the sand that say, okay, this is what you do because you're the man, and this is what you do because you're the woman. And I think it's completely healthy, and I think it's okay to have those boundaries set and have those gender roles. And it's not a misogynistic thing. It's not something that like should be shunned in society, and it's not something to put a woman down. It's the nature of creating a healthy environment for a family.
100%. And it's also, we're Christians, right? So like we also believe what the Bible says, and there is clearly defined roles biblically. And the man of the house, like, this is one thing that is completely on us. We have to answer to God when we give an account of our lives on how we stewarded our families.
For sure.
The wives don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, we are fully responsible for what happens
right
within the family. Now, like you said, it is a partnership, but there are clearly defined roles.
For sure.
And that's just biblical.
Right. This episode of the Lone Wolf Podcast is brought to you by Heart and Soil's Whole Package Supplement. Yes, the one with the actual testicle in it. You can keep pounding energy drinks and praying for a miracle, or you can fuel your body with real deal nutrients straight from nature's multivitamins. Beef liver, heart, blood extract, and yes, a little ball power. If you've ever thought, man, I wish I could bottle masculinity, congrats, Heart and Soil already did it. Packed with bioavailable nutrients, this stuff is designed to help you feel like the primal beast you were meant to be, not some limp noodle scrolling TikTok at 2 a.m. So get your vitamins and your minerals with a dash of testosterone straight from nature herself, because nothing says I care about my health like swallowing a little testicle. Use code LONEWOLF for 15% off your first order. Heart and Soil. Fuel up, get primal, and stray from the pack. So, I mean, this is kind of to jump off topic a little bit. We were kind of going into gender roles and, how important we think they are and how they're defined in the Bible, and, how they essentially are there for a reason and they work. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, your time in the military. You joined the military when you were 18 years old.
Yep.
And you joined the Army. And I remember when you joined, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the fuck is he doing? I was like, this seems really dumb. But also, I mean, you were in a position where you needed something.
For sure.
And I think that, looking at it now, like I'm jealous because of where you're at now, as far as like putting 20 years in, full retirement, you're starting a brand new career as, in a completely different field. You've got a bachelor's degree from it. You also were the type of guy that took the initiative, and you were doing the things that you should do to progress and become and elevate yourself within the military. And you took every advantage of that. But do you think that the military was something, like, looking back at it when you joined, do you think when you joined, you thought that you would end up here?
No, definitely not. I was a decent student in high school, and then my senior year, I screwed up so bad that I ended up getting, because in Nevada they had the Millennium Scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
All you had to do was maintain a 3.0, and you could go in state for free.
Right.
I graduated with a 2.9
mm-hmm.
and lost the scholarship. Had no intention of ever joining the military, and just about 6 months after graduating, I ended up in the Army recruiter's office and, got lied to and joined, and then got my, one of our friends growing up, Mike, to join with me, and, did the deployment to Iraq, and then came home, met my now ex-wife, and did the whole thing, the little white wedding chapel on the Strip, 2 weeks.
Didn't tell me.
Didn't tell anybody.
Didn't tell me until a month. No, you didn't even tell me. I found out a month later from one of your friends.
Yeah, it's because I knew you were going to be pissed.
I was so pissed. You know what, though? I wouldn't have been as pissed if you would have just told me. I would have tried to talk you out of it.
You would have talked me out of it.
100%.
Yeah.
So I understand it. But yeah, I was so, dude, I remember where I was at to the day I was working at Planet Hollywood as a lifeguard on the Strip. Matt Brown.
Yeah.
One of our friends. Anyways, he calls and he's like, hey, dude, he's like, can't believe your brother, right? I was like, what are you talking about, dude? And he was like, you got married. I was like, what? To who? And he was like, well, it's, your ex-wife.
Right.
So, and I was like, you got to be kidding me, dude. I was like, you're lying. I was like, dude, there's no way he would have told me. I was like, he would have told me for sure. He goes, no, dude. He's like, he obviously didn't want you to know. And I was like, there's no way. I remember I kept telling him there's no way he would have told me, like, we're tight. And he was like, all right, dude. Well, he goes, maybe you should call him. And I was like, I'm going to call this motherfucker. So then I called you and I was like, dude, Matt's tripping, bro. He's telling people that you got married. And I remember you got kind of quiet. You're like, well, and then you're like, no, I did. And I was like, no, you didn't. And you were like, yeah, dude, like, I got married. And I was, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, are you stupid? And I remember you were like, no, dude, like, like being in the military, there's a lot of benefits to it. Like, like better to be, and like, you tried to go that route with me. And I was like, why would you ever do? I was like, you guys have known each other like what, a month? And that's kind of what it was,
like 2
right?
weeks.
It was like, yeah. And I don't think, and now looking back at it, obviously, you got 2 beautiful children out of it. And I love your kids to death. And I love her. And I love her as a person too.
Right.
But man, I was pissed, dude. I was like, you are such an idiot. But you know what? At the same time, it's kind of like what we were just talking about. Like and I think it is a military thing too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yes.
Like that is a thing in the military.
Yeah.
To immediately find somebody and like,
bro, I was the stereotype.
You 100% were.
Yes.
And the relationship wasn't perfect.
No. We were also kids.
You were kids, yeah, for sure. But the fact that you guys made it work for so long, and you're both good parents, and your kids turned out awesome, kind of just shows that you can make it work.
Yeah. And
you can do that. So I mean, when you joined the military initially, you did all that, you did some crazy shit, and then like going into boot camp and getting out of all that, and then realizing kind of what you got yourself into. Because I remember when you were leaving, it was around the time that movie Jarhead came out. Mm-hmm. And we went and watched that, and
it was the same year,
and it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of going to be what it's like for you. And then you get shipped off to boot camp, and reality kind of sets in. And were there times when you were like, I'm sure there were times where you're in boot camp and you're going through the shit, and you're sitting there and you're going, what the fuck did I do?
Every day. That's the only thought you have. It's like, I can't believe it. I remember when I got to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I was waiting for boot camp to start. They put us in these barracks, and I was there for like a week. And there was a payphone that you could call home. And I called Dad, and I just remember being like, I cannot believe you let me join the Army. And he was like, dude, I told you not to. And I was like, yeah, but you didn't stop me. Like, I was so pissed.
Dude, that must have been miserable.
Oh, dude, it was the worst.
Yeah.
And, then you're there I did what they call one station unit training because I was a scout. So it was boot camp and your job training in one long program. So it was 18 weeks of boot camp essentially.
Right.
And it was in the wintertime in Kentucky. It was not fun.
Ugh.
And then, we get sent to Fort Stewart, Georgia, and then they're getting ready to go back to Iraq. They had just come home. Mm-hmm. And then we deployed to Fallujah, and it was terrible. I mean, it was horrible.
So they were, I mean, and we should mention at the time you joined, we had just gotten into Iraq. We were like a couple years into the Iraq
2 years,
Iraq war, and it was not a good time to join the military, in the sense that you were going to be put into like dangerous situations.
Which is, I wanted that.
I know you did, and that's what I thought was retarded, because I was like, dude, you're joining as a cavalry scout, and if you don't know, a cavalry scout are the guys that go in before the infantry, and you did a lot of door kick-ins and night patrols and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so it was essentially a hands-on, very combat active job, and that to me was absolutely insane, because we were at war, and I remember Dad and I like trying to talk you out and like trying to tell you like you should do tech or like something where you're kind of.
Dad was always like, you should have been a supply sergeant. I'm like, you don't just go in as a supply sergeant. Like, that's not a thing,
right? But yeah, I mean, in our minds, obviously we didn't want you to die,
right?
So we were like, this feels really dumb, and that was some of the most stressful times ever, was when you took your first deployment, because it felt real when you were gone, because we had grown up together. You and I are 18 months apart, and you were gone, and then it was like, all right, well, he's out of the house. This is weird. We're kind of, we could still talk to you occasionally. And then you got out of boot camp. We went to your graduation at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and then you kind of, again, you got stationed somewhere else in Georgia.
Yeah,
and then it was deployments.
Yeah, one long deployment. Yeah,
but it was split up, right? Like you came back in between.
For 2 weeks. Yeah, it's just your mid-tour leave.
But it was a year, right?
It's 15 months.
15 months, okay. So yeah, that 15 months was scary. And there were so many times where, you were in these crazy places, like you were in Fallujah and
Ramadi for a little bit.
And all, I mean, if you look into those areas around that time, those were some of the worst areas to be in.
Yeah.
And that was a rough time for our family. I remember I think Dad took a life insurance policy.
He's like, I know if I take one out, you won't die, because I won't I won't ever get rich.
That's such a rich wolf. Oh my God.
He's hedging his bets, dude.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, you made it through. It was, it was definitely a scary situation. You got through all of that, and then you came back, and you were in the military for what, another couple years, or in the Army?
No, I was only in for like another year.
Another year, yeah. And who gave you the idea for the Coast Guard?
Dad, because I got out, moved back home. I was living in their camper on the side of the house.
That's right. That didn't last long.
With my, ex-wife and our daughter. I was making bad decisions again.
I mean, you came right back to the place that you left because of the problems that you had.
And I was getting back into the same stuff. And Dad, to his credit, recognized it and was like, you need to get back in the military. He's like, I don't want you to join the Army. He goes, I don't want you to go back to Iraq. He's like, why don't you go look at the Coast Guard?
Yeah.
So I went down to the recruiter's office, and the doors were locked on a work day, and you had to make an appointment. When I joined the Army, the doors were wide open with balloons out front.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this might be legit.
Right.
So I was in 3 months later, and yeah, man, it's been awesome. I had some great times in the Coast Guard.
Well, and you've lived in San Diego, and I lived with you in San Diego for a while, and in your kid's closet.
Yep. Jordan's closet.
Uncle Jordan's closet, which they still talk about today, and that was some of the funnest times ever.
It was like 6 months.
Yeah, it's like 6 months I lived in that closet. It was so fun, man.
Yeah.
The closet did have a window. And it was spacious. It was spacious. And I remember Eli was probably 4 years old, and he'd wake up and come run in there and jump on me in the mornings.
Oh yeah, it was like it was like you're their older brother.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I taught him how to surf.
Yep.
And it's funny because now we come full circle. We're in Jacksonville now, and the second day I was here, him and I went surfing again.
Yep.
And I think it's the first time we've surfed together, like maybe
since
then. Yeah. Which is really cool. And now he's a teenager, and he's growing and kind of becoming his own man, and it's super fun to hang out with him and see that. But yeah, I would never look back and regret those times, because they were some of the funnest times we ever had.
Oh, dude, it was so fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the Coast Guard now, you're retiring this month. as senior chief in the Coast Guard, which is a huge accomplishment. And, you've had an amazing career with the Coast Guard. And now you're jumping into something completely different after this. The military kind of shaped you into, one, a really hard worker. And I think you had that set in you prior to the military, but it just helped bring that out of you.
Yeah, for sure.
And it gave you some structure, and it gave you some, wouldn't you say that it kind of gave you some principles and discipline that you were lacking?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, our dad taught us things through sports.
Right.
And, mainly football, because that was his thing. And, that's also very hard. And I think it prepared me well for the military. But I think those types of, that structure that those types of things provide, especially young men, they're lifelong invaluable lessons.
For sure.
I know you took a lot from playing football too. And,
oh yeah,
we had, up until we were both essentially 18, we had very, very similar, we lived in the same house. So
for sure,
our principles and everything were the same. But yeah, having that and then getting into the military and then seeing they reward success and hard work.
For sure. Yeah.
And it pays off. So, it's the harder you work and the better you perform, the faster you can advance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a great kind of microcosm of what it looks like to be successful in America.
Yeah.
Because, especially in the military, where it's there are these guardrails to where as long as you're doing what they tell you to do, you can be successful.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of gives you an outline. It gives you a template to build a successful life.
Yes.
And not everybody, I'm not saying everybody needs the military to be successful or
Definitely
to, find some regimen of consistency and discipline. But I do think that if starting at a young age and being in the military, it kind of expedites that for you. It gives you that template to build on. And I didn't join the military. In hindsight, I kind of wish I did, just for certain benefits and the all of the things that you're reaping now because of the time that you put in. But plenty of people find their way and find their discipline and become, strong, independent men and women without the military.
Yeah, 100%. I think the military is just kind of like an accelerated leadership course.
Yeah. And it is kind of a cheat code.
Yeah.
It is kind of a hack. If you can get through the initial brunt of that boot camp and the bullshit and the hard times.
It sucks.
Yeah,
the first essentially 7-8 years is not fun.
Right.
You're getting paid dog shit. You're going places you don't want to go.
They're
you're away from your family.
In your face.
Yeah.
They're breaking you down.
Eventually it gets good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like you said, you put the time in and you work hard, it's going to pay off.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people need that, especially young men. And it's definitely valuable for women too. But I think especially young men who, are lost, or they don't have a father figure to model what it looks like to be a man.
Right.
Some of the best mentors and leaders I've ever met have been in the military, some of the worst too.
Right.
But I think if you don't have that modeled for you, you can find that in the military.
For sure. And I think that is a huge benefit, especially like you said, for men that maybe don't have a father figure or a role model of what a healthy male mentor relationship looks like. Now, having sons and daughters, would you be opposed to your children joining the military?
No, it would just depend on what they want to do. Ultimately, no, I would not.
Mm-hmm.
I would support them if they wanted to do that. I also still, we grew up in a time where it was the thing that you did was you graduate high school, you go to college, you get a career.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still kind of in the back of my head to where I don't want them to join the military because I know that they have more, even though you can still have so much by joining the military.
Yeah.
There's still even in my own head after 20 years in the military, I'm it's kind of for people who don't have their shit together.
Right.
You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. But also, I think that college has gotten a little unnecessary.
A lot of
Yeah.
unnecessary.
So, I mean, like personally, and if it were me and my kids wanted to join the military, and just judging based off of your input and, you know, your life and how things turned out for you, again, you did join up, or you joined the military as a means to kind of clean your life up and an alternative to potentially going to jail or whatever.
right.
Like that, I still think it's beneficial, and I don't think I would be opposed to my children joining the military. But like you said, I don't know if it would be my first choice for them.
Right.
But it is a great option, and I don't think that you know, as long as the military stays relatively conservative,
Right.
and you know the opportunities are still there, and the benefits are still there, I see it as like kind of a win.
Yeah, I think the benefits outweigh the negative aspects of it. I mean, it does. It largely depends on who's in office.
Right.
Like when Biden was in office, I was forced to get the COVID shot. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I didn't want to get that, and I held out, and then they threatened to relieve me of my command.
Yeah.
If I didn't get it, so I mean, and I was 15 years in, so it's like, what am I going to not get my retirement?
Right. Right.
Like I had to do it. So
yeah, that's kind of sketchy.
Yeah, and so like,
I mean, at that point, did you kind of feel like a property of the government?
yeah, well, I've always felt like that
Because you kind of are, right?
Yeah.
You kind of sign your life away.
No, I mean, you are the property of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you fall under a whole different law. Like
Right.
the Uniform Code of Military Justice is now the governing law of your life.
That's crazy.
And, you know, there's some really old school stuff in there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it's like again, there are a lot of negative aspects, and this is not, I don't want this to be like a pro or, you know, don't join the military or join the military podcast. Like I just want this, you know what I mean? Like it definitely has its benefits. And I think, again, like if you're lacking discipline, if you're lacking, you know, leadership, and if you don't know what it looks like to be a man, you can and will find that in the military. You can find that anywhere, really. But I mean, that's what the military essentially is.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree with that. So kind of going back to, you know, what we were talking about before, you know, we got into your military time and you joining the Army, and gender roles and all of that, and how society is kind of trying to reshape those things. The military itself now does not really have specific gender roles like it used to, because you used to be able, if you were a woman, you wouldn't be able to be in like an active combat position, correct?
right. Yeah.
So when did that change? Do you know when that changed?
I think they got rid of
G.I. Jane?
yeah. Well, it was actually way after that. I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, they started a lot. I think it must have been when Biden was in, or maybe Obama. I can't remember. It was one of the libtards.
Yeah.
And they got rid of the gender assignment roles. Like, you know, you couldn't be in a combat job if you were a woman.
Okay.
And yeah, so I mean, it hasn't been like a long period of time that this has been an option for them.
Yeah. Did you, when you were in the military as a cavalry scout, were there any women in that field with you? None, right? But they could have been if they really wanted to. No. Because that was long ago.
That was 2005 to 2009.
Okay, so that was not a thing then.
No.
But now, like if I signed up now, or like a young person signed up now, they could join as a female as long as they met the physical requirements.
Right.
Do you? I mean, being real, would you have felt comfortable having a woman in your platoon, like having your back?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
And not to say that they can't do it.
Right, for sure.
It's just the dynamic is so.
It's a brotherhood, but it's also a physical thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's more about just the relationships when you're deployed. I mean, you're with a bunch of degenerates, and we're talking about all kinds of crazy stuff, dark humor, like, you know, nothing's off limits,
right?
And whether you want to admit it or not, you do act differently in what you say around women.
For sure.
And,
yeah. Well, and there's a role and a time and a place with your boys. And then when you're getting out of hand and you're talking shit.
Well, yeah, dude, it's already hard enough.
Yeah.
When you're deployed, like you're already away from your family, you're getting shot at, you're just in these remote, desolate shitholes, and it already sucks. You know what I mean? Right. So like the one thing that you have is camaraderie and, making crazy jokes at other people's expenses.
Right.
Now, the last thing I want to do is have to sit here and, whether this is fair or not, to, put this like preconceived notion out there. Like, I don't want to get hit with a sexual harassment claim.
Right.
You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's a very real thing.
That's a real thing for sure. Yeah.
It probably sounds bad to be like, I want to be able to sexually harass people, but not women. You know what I mean?
Well, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way. Because, obviously there probably are women out there that could do the job and do all of that and maybe not have their feelings hurt
for sure
and be tough and whatever.
I know. Yeah.
But I think overall, in a general sense, I think that what you're saying holds a lot of weight, because I'm sure there's a 99% of the men that are in those positions now feel the same way that you do.
Yes.
And it's one of those high level, high stress environments where, you're just trying to make it through to the next day and get your job done. And I think that adding that element of, just differences and having those stresses doesn't make anybody feel better, doesn't make them feel better, doesn't make you feel better.
It doesn't make anything easier.
It's not going to make you perform better, for sure.
No. It's also going to make you take unnecessary, uncalculated risk.
Right. You might do something that you wouldn't have done had there not been a female there.
Right.
So, I mean, going and, talking about gender roles in the military and, how that affects your job and all of that stuff. You mentioned earlier that, we are Christian men,
mm-hmm.
And how that kind of plays a role in who you are now as a man and who you are as a father. And that hasn't always been at the forefront of, what you use to guide who you are as a person. And that definitely hasn't been something that I've always relied on to, lead by example and all of that as well. It's something that I'm striving to do more now as I've, grown in my faith and also grown as a father and a husband.
Yeah.
And applying those principles that are taught in the Bible through Christ really has made a big difference in the way that I lead and just the cohesiveness of my family. I mean, can you kind of speak on that a little bit and, how that's changed for you over time?
Yeah, for sure. We were raised in a Christian household. Our dad became a Christian in the 80s, then our mom became a Christian, and then that's how we were raised.
Right.
And, we were raised in, a pretty good church, I would say. It's not perfect. There's no perfect church. And then when I joined the Army, faith got put aside, and I was like, okay, I'll get back to that someday.
Right.
And, by the grace of God, I did. When I got here to Jacksonville and found this church that we're going to, 1122, is an amazing church with an amazing pastor. And, they put a huge emphasis on what it means to be a Christian man. And, they don't feminize it, which the church has done for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of raising kids while I wasn't walking my faith, we always prayed, and, I made sure they knew that they were Christian.
Yeah, there were some foundational things that we kept.
But I was not walking the walk.
No,
for sure.
No, you weren't trusting. You weren't trusting in God as your means or your source of where your love and compassion and fatherly duties came from.
No.
And that's the same for me as well. Cause up until even just recently, and it was kind of, it's funny because you mentioned 1122 and the church that you go to, and we were living in Vegas and we didn't really have a church that we belonged to. And I think, Morgan and I were kind of starting to talk about it and dabble in that and talk about religion a little bit. And, you know, I had always felt like I had a relationship with God, but I knew it was lacking.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't feel like something that I could speak on to my wife about. And I didn't really know how to navigate that, or, you know, answer questions for her. And then you guys kind of turned us on to 1122. And we started watching it online. And it really resonated with me because of who the pastor is and how, you know, he is a strong male and he's not shy about being a man and what that actually means.
Right.
And he's not like, for lack of a better term, pussyfooting around the situation. Like he talks, he's a hunter. He is a guy's guy. He rides Harleys. He's like a cool dude.
Yeah.
And that kind of resonated with me because I was like, man, I kind of always felt like the male like pastor that I was kind of had seen previously was kind of just like, he's wearing a sweater and he's, you know, maybe he cries a little bit on stage.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's about like the feelings, and like that never resonated with me. I was like, that's fucking pussy shit.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, I excuse my language, but that's kind of how I felt. And so when I kind of got a taste of that, it kind of made me feel like, okay, well, maybe there is like, maybe there's something cool about this. And there is something that can kind of make me feel like I can be that guy that I want to be while following Christ. And that kind of put things into motion for me, is like wanting to dive deeper into that. And also for my wife, for Morgan, I think her seeing that as like a strong male and somebody who's funny and charismatic and cool, it kind of clicked for her as well. She was like, this is something I can get behind. And the way that he's describing it and the teachings and everything that he was teaching was directly from the Bible and the Word of God. It really, really resonated with me.
Yeah. And I think for me, you know, traveling around the country for 20 years and living in different places, you know, we always try to find a church that we would go to. And every time I am forcing myself to go, I'm like, dude, I don't want to hang out with these people. Like, I don't want to spend any time with anybody that goes to this church. And then, you know, I got here and checked this one out, and I was like, oh wait, like these people are actually like legit. Like right. I'd hang out with these people. Yeah. Especially the guys, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, they're talking about hunting. They're talking about drinking bourbon and smoke, like, but they also love the Lord.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. I found my people finally.
For sure.
And that's not to say like, oh, they're excusing sin while also going to church. That's not the case at all. But you know, they're just doing what the Bible says, and it's shocker, it's working.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, having returned to my faith in, you know, I would say, you know, I got baptized 3 years ago with, you know, Eli, and at our church at the beach, and just seeing how that has changed my relationship with my kids, with my wife. You know, I met Abby, my wife, when we met online, but then we found out we went to the same church and started dating. Now we're married, and he just had a baby.
Yeah.
It changes everything, man. It you know, it starts by just doing what the Bible says, praying and trying to, you know, get closer to him every single day. And when that happens, you know, there's a real tangible change that happens in your life to where, you know, people are going to start noticing it, especially your kids, your wife, and, you know, how you lead. I mean, we still struggle for sure. Right?
Yeah. Everybody's that's the point isn't that you're not going to struggle and things are just going to get easier all of a sudden.
No, it's going to get harder.
Yeah. And it's also when you are applying those principles to your life, it's teaching you to be a servant to the people that are around you, your wife. You know, it's teaching you to be a servant to your children, and it's setting you up to be the person that is going to make the sacrifices for your family for the betterment of them.
I mean, it's, you know, it says in, you know, Paul wrote, you know, you're supposed to love your wife like Christ loved the church, right? Gave his life up for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
So we are called to serve our families, to serve our communities. And, you know, that's why what we have is so important. Like you know, obviously we're brothers, but we're also best friends. And it's like having people that you can confide in and, you know, if you're doing something stupid, I'm going to call it out, and vice
Right.
versa. Um, having that dynamic is what God intended for us. And through that, we can raise our kids in a household that provides a loving, stable, Christian foundation for them to hopefully springboard into adulthood with.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, set those like foundational principles of, what it means to be a man and what it means to be a human being who is not only, trying to be a good person, but realizing that there's nothing that you can do yourself, and putting that faith in Christ and kind of wearing that armor to know that that's going to be something that you can carry into your relationships.
Yes.
So, one of the other things, along with what, how it's changed my life and your life as, applying those principles from the church and from the teachings of Christ into our relationships and marriage is like it. A lot of times, though, I think Christianity gets lumped in with like conservatism, and it kind of, people think that, because you're doing these traditional values and you have these gender roles and you have these situations, like it's almost like you're taught to neglect your wife or your spouse, and like there's like this male domination within that, and it's really not, because when you look at it and you look at the teachings of Christ, like you said in Paul, when he says, you're supposed to serve your wife like Jesus served the church, that most Christian men that are actually following Christ, I think they are probably the best at checking in with their wives and knowing when something's wrong, and going out of their way to kind of be like, hey, is there anything that I can do better to serve you, and just being that guy that's not afraid to go out and ask if they need help. Like I think it was Charlie Kirk. He was talking about, being a Christian father and a leader in his family. Um, and he was saying that, as a Christian and as the leader of his family and as a servant of his family, he would check in with his wife on a regular basis to say, hey, how can I serve you? What can I do for you? Is there anything that I can do to be a better father or a better husband?
Yeah.
And I think those things, they get misconstrued with the way that the media wants to portray a certain image. But those are some of the healthiest things that you can do. And I think that, I don't think there's many people that would say that checking in with your wife and checking in with your kids or or your husband, if you're the wife, I don't think that there's anybody that would say that those are bad things to do. And it's all taught in the scripture.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why Christians get labeled that way, and it's because the media hates us, right?
For sure.
Like what they want to be able to do is make money off of telling women that they're stronger on their own,
Right.
telling men that they're toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you can divide a family, you can take advantage of people.
100%.
And the thing that, as a Christian, it tells us to do everything the opposite of what society and the media is telling us to do. And that scares the media.
For sure.
So if you just take everything at face value and surface level and you're just reading headlines, then you're going to probably have a negative connotation of what it means to be a Christian.
Yeah.
But if you do a little bit of research and a little bit of reading, you're going to be like, wait, this is the opposite of what everyone's telling me that Christians are doing.
Yeah.
Oh, they're serving their families, they're serving their communities, they're trying to help people out.
Right. Right. Be a part of your community, to love your neighbor as yourself. Like
right.
Those are principles I think if anybody applied to their life, we would see things get better.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of crazy that, there's the media demonizes it, but it's really not when you look at the stuff that they're focusing on and the inflammatory shit that they talk about just to get clicks, and, the divide and conquer ways that we've seen on social media, and just the divisiveness of, keeping people at odds. So I don't think that people are shocked when you tell them like, hey, maybe, or you're starting to open people's eyes to the realization that what they're telling you is bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I think people might be shocked. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
there definitely are still people.
I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of really stupid people.
For sure.
I
Yes.
mean, if they're not, if they're just taking what CNN and MSNBC says about, white Christian men, then they're gonna hate us.
For sure.
So, but I think it's starting to like come full circle a little bit. I think you have people like Rogan now, like saying, "Man, I don't see anything wrong with what Christians are saying. Like
Right.
I'm going to church."
Mm-hmm.
He's saying if I apply these values, like things are going to get better for me.
Yeah.
Now he's still off, like as far as like Christ wasn't just a good teacher, like he
Right.
was the Son of God.
Right.
So,
but he's at least
he's getting there.
He's at least recognizing that there's no flaws to the teachings of the Bible.
Right. Exactly.
And that if people really did apply that to their life, that they probably have benefit from that. Yeah. So I mean, I kind of want to bring it back around. I think we covered a lot of different things, and I think we had a few different angles that we looked at, what it means to be a man and a leader of our family. And I think that there is a lot that, there's still plenty to talk about. And again, like we said, we're doing the best we can. We're not fucking perfect.
No.
And, every day is a struggle. And, that's the whole purpose, is to wake up and know that, you're going to fight and struggle for the people that you love, and for your faith, and for your family. And, trying to be better every single day. I kind of wanted to ask a question just to, wrap things up a little bit. If you had some advice for pre-children Clayton back, when you were just in the Army, and, you found out that your wife was pregnant and you were going to have kids, is there anything like specifically that you would have changed, or that you would tell him going into it?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be extremely hard. You're going to lose all your like personal time that you had to do whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all worth it. Seeing your kids, in your wife every day, and seeing, your children have milestones and accomplishments, it pales in it's not even close to your own personal accomplishments.
For sure.
You know what I mean? It's you never realize how much you could love something until you have a kid. But again, it's going to be hard, and just respond, don't react, because there's going to be times when you see red. It happens to me a lot, that.
Yeah, I
do. And you can be quick to say things that can be very hurtful, and kids remember things for a long time.
They definitely do.
And they will pull things out that you said.
Yep.
15 years later, and you'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you even talking about? I never said that. And you're like, do you remember we were in McDonald's and you said this one thing? Like, oh shit, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe 15 years later you still think about that.
Still holding on to it. And that is kind of crazy though, because sometimes we get into the heat of the moment and we're just reacting, like you said, instead of responding, and we're unaware of the actual damage that we're doing at the time.
Oh yeah. Like we go to bed like nothing happened, and they're thinking about it for 6 months.
Yeah, for sure. Just never let it go.
The father's weight, man, it's their words have some serious impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just even reflecting on myself and things that I've done and said, and having that same experience, it's hard to do, but once you, like you said, once you start to respond instead of react, and you kind of gather yourself, especially to your children and your wife in the moment, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
Because then you can go, okay, well, maybe let's start to think about what I'm actually saying here, instead of just being a reactionary person where I'm going to actually do more damage than good.
I went to a leadership school in the Coast Guard, and I thought this was super lame when I learned it, but there is some value in it, and it's acknowledge and validate. Like acknowledge what
validate.
they're saying,
Validate their feelings.
Yeah, validate. I understand why you might feel this way,
Mm-hmm.
but this is what we have to do, and this is why.
I like.
And I don't do that very often.
Well,
I'm like, it's because I said so.
You're getting better at it, though.
Yeah. So,
but that is a cool. I like that, acknowledge and validate, and I think that that could carry over into a number of different things for everybody. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I want to wrap this up today by just saying thanks for coming on, and I love you.
Love you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man, and thanks for letting us stay at your house.
Yep.
I might never leave.
I hope not.
But yeah, I wanted to just kind of leave it out there for people if you're listening, whether you're like a new dad, or I know we kind of jumped around and covered a lot of different things. But hopefully you could take something from this, and, maybe it gave you some good ideas on how you can be a better father and, have some impact on your family and be the guy that stands up and says, you know what, I'm going to take control and I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the most and the best for my family. But yeah, I think, again, we're doing the best that we can. And yeah, I love you, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, love you too. Let's go fix my bathroom.
Yeah, so we got to get that done, dude. Oh, man. All right. Love you, dude.
Love you.
If you feel at home here, leaving a 5-star review helps other families find their way too.
Come hang out with us on socials at Lone Wolf Podcast, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's next.
Remember, sometimes you have to stray from the pack to discover where you truly belong. Until next time, loners.